The day my mother found out she was dying, she asked me to go out and buy her these blue glass marbles. My father and I hadn't even known she was ill, which was nothing new. Because whenever you asked my mother if she was ill, she would just throw things at you. Sesame buns, the editorial page, a handful of hair ribbons. Do not, she would say, suggest things to suggestible people. So anyway, I brought her the marbles and she counted 90 of them out and put them in this old cut glass bowl, which had been the sum total of Great Aunt Hilda's estate. Apparently, the doctors had given her 3 months, and she set great store by doctors. She said she believed them because they are the nearest thing to the Old Testament we had. I wouldn't give you 2 bits for just 2 young, smiley guys, she would say. I will for a very good and stern-forward physician. She wouldn't even have her teeth cleaned by a dentist under 50. So, she counted out the marbles and she put them in this bowl on her bedside table. And then she went out and spent $1,200 on nightgowns. In my family, she said, you only die when you take to bed. And that, my darlings, is where I'm going. And she did. Well, we hashed it around, of course. My father said she couldn't possibly be dying, but the doctors convinced him. And I told her it seemed a little medieval to lie in state up there, but she said she didn't want to be distracted from what she loved, us, and what she wanted to know. She said there was nothing outside except supermarket and drugstores and dry cleaners, and that, given her situation, they were beneath her dignity. So I asked her what she intended to do up there, and she said, study French, visit with us, generally mow, and maybe call a few Pauls. Study French. She said she had made a pledge to herself years ago that she would die bilingual. Well, from then on, the doctors had to come see her because, as she put it, she came in with a house call and she was going out with a house call. And every day, all day, she would hold one of these marbles in her hand. You know why? She said it made the day longer. My mom had her own bedroom, and that was the way it always was for as long as I can remember. She used to call my father the thresher. And he could really get into a nightmare sometimes. Apparently, early on in the marriage, he had flipped over and broken her nose, and that was it. Separate beds. Her room was very sparse, really. Wooden floors, an old steel and brass bed, the bedside table, an oak dresser, and don't ask me why, a hat rack. No pictures on the walls. She could never understand how people could look at the same darn thing day after day. She said it was bound to deflate the imagination. We'd sit with her after dinner to talk about issues. She said she was too far gone for gossip or what she ate for lunch. And then we would turn in, and in a little while, just before it drift off, I'd hear this. It happened every night. And after the 3rd or 4th day, I saw one on the floor, and I started to pick it up, and she said, "Leave it." She said it very sharply. And I asked her, "How come?" And she said she was learning to let go of them. My mom. She passed the time. There were things she wanted. She she made out a list of children's books from her own childhood, and my father and I got as many of them as we could find from the library. She said they were still the only good books she'd ever read. She wrote to, I don't know, maybe 60 or 70 people, and they told us later on that they were sort of little formal goodbyes, each of them recalling some incident or shared something not very significant. But the odd thing was that in each one she included a recipe in every one of them. We got out the big cookie tin full of snapshots that somehow never became a scrapbook. She liked that. She liked that a lot. She showed my father the accounts. We went through the names of the roofers, the plumbers, the air conditioning people. She called it wrapping it up. Well, this is good, she'd say. I'm wrapping it up. She had a television moved up in her room, and then she called me aside to say that it was entirely possible that she might reach a stage where she wouldn't know what she was watching, but that I must promise I'd keep it on PBS. And later on, when it started getting hard, she told my father and I that she would like to spend more time alone. I'm afraid, she said, I'm gonna have to do this more or less by myself. And she said that she was glad, and she hoped we would be, that this was all arranged so that we got less attached to the people we loved at the end. Well, the next period isn't really worth going into. It was just hard. Can you believe it that from the very beginning down to the very last, she never admitted to any pain? Never. She called it the chills. And the last thing she asked for was a picture that we had in the front entrance door of a Labrador Retriever, Troy, that she and my father had owned when they were first married. He was, she said, a perfectly dreadful dog. When you're young, she said, you believe in the perfectibility of dogs. Well, 2 weeks ago, Wednesday toward dawn, I was in bed and then I heard this. Dad and I ran in there, and the bedside table was turned over, and she was gone. When the emergency medical people got there, they found this. The rest spilled over when the table fell, but this one was still in her hand. And I keep it. I keep it in my hand all day. It makes the day longer, you know?